Hello, listeners. I'm so excited that you decided to try this podcast. I swear, just give me a couple minutes and I promise you're going to love it. I'm going to try my best at least. So, my name is Cassie, and you are listening to Mind, Body, and Spirit Life Tales with Cass. That's me. All right, so I love to coach and teach and help and support through resources. And some of those resources are some of the best books I've came across. So during this podcast, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we improve our mind, body, and spirit. And I'll tell you life lessons of my own. And I'll read you books and important chapters that I think will help you also go on your journey. So I know what you're thinking. What are your credentials? Like, how can you tell me how to help myself? So, of course, I hate credentials only because I think that age doesn't define a lot of things. I think that time, I think that location doesn't, because I think what's very important to remember is everybody has a different story, a different experience that has made them into the person that they are today. And those experiences can be very vast and huge and small. The thing is, we all have something to learn from each other no matter what, because none of us have experienced the same exact life, right? So, how am I qualified? Well, for one, I look younger than I am. So, I'm 33 years old. I spent the last 10 years building a human resources career. I used to believe that what was really, really important was climbing that corporate ladder. And I got really good at human resources, especially for someone of my age. Like, my talent did grow way faster than it typically would have. But I also had great mentors along the way. That's the cool thing about this podcast is I'm going to take you and I'm going to take you on a journey, and I will bring people on this podcast that I have met in the business environment, in my social environment, my personal environment as well. But definitely from the business perspective, I've made so many great connections while I've built my career at some great companies and some large companies. Those mentors along the way help me build my mind, body, and spirit, whether they know it or not. In some aspect, it helped me mold into the person I am today. So, yeah, I spent the last 10 years in human resources. I now own my own business where I help and consult and, coach others with their mind, body, and spirit. I'm in the process of writing my first book. I have a website that just went live. I have a YouTube channel, this podcast. I have a secondary podcast that's like more for funsies. And I have a TikTok channel as well where, we review the same kind of things, but in shorter versions. So very exciting. I originally got my associate's degree with a major in accounting, and then I got my bachelor's degree with a major in human resource management. I did get accepted for an MBA program, and I was gonna go hard at that, but again, life happens, right? And I decided, I didn't I really didn't learn as much from college as I anticipated I would. And by that I mean I really didn't learn a lot. I think I read the only time I even read books in college was when it involved math because I had to study. Like, I had to read the book. Other than that, like, all my business experience came from the real world. So it was like I didn't have to read any of the books. It's like, hey, I already experienced this. I know what's going on. So I also have some OSHA certifications, CPR, AED, stuff like that. I have an I-9 administrator certified, training thing that I don't use anymore. I'm a brand ambassador for a fitness company, so I've been diving into that. Part of my YouTube channel is meditation and fitness, and like more to come. Like, I'm always working on a new project. So, yeah, I do. I have met a lot of great people that, I can share their life advice. We're gonna definitely have them on this podcast, and then I can share my own because I've also had quite the interesting experience that has molded me to where I am today. So that's who I am. I hope that you give me a chance. And again, I like to teach through books. I have worked with a lot of leaders in these organizations that I worked for where I had to do a lot of training and develop them. And I got to do a lot of free trainings and seminars and stuff. You know, John C. Maxwell, if you've heard of him, like he did the Developing the Leader Within You series and training programs. I got to go to these major SHRM conferences before. I got to fly on a private jet with the CEO once. It was really cool. I built an HR audit for a manufacturing company that I ended up implementing in like 10 of their manufacturing facilities, which was really, really cool. So again, I've got a vast experience. I did some coaching for like my daughter's soccer team, you know, stuff like that. So little things here and there. But, you know, I also, from a personal life perspective, I was in the foster care system when I was a child. I was raised by a narcissistic mother, and my dad was in prison my entire life. I was homeless at one point. My own mom took me to court at one point. Like, I have experienced some crazy ups and downs, and I remain positive at the end of the day. And I want to teach others how, because, you know, it's people like us that like take those beatings and get back up stronger every time, that they're just a force to be reckoned with. If we had a lot more people like that on this planet, I think we'd be a better place. So, the first book, I love this book because you don't actually have to read it like chapter 1 through chapter 50. This is not that kind of book. This is, you can jump in anywhere and just get the advice you want out of the book. And it's called Tribe of Mentors. And one of the reasons it's my favorite books is because I have truly built a tribe of mentors that have helped me succeed in pretty much every goal I've ever met for myself or made for myself. So, Tribe of Mentors. This is what it looks like for those watching the actual video of this podcast. It is a short life advice from the best in the world by Timothy Ferriss. And what he does, this is brilliant. I freaking love it. And I wish more people knew about this book. He goes and interviews the most highly successful people in the world, whether it's, you know, their NFL superstars, they're CEO of these massive corporations, they're inventors, they're architects, they're, you know, all of these highly successful people. He wanted to find out, what's the common denominator? What are these people doing that's continuing to drive their success? Like, are they all doing similar things? What's their lifestyle like? What's their thought process like? What can we learn from them, right? We don't have to keep reinventing the wheel all the time. Like, we absolutely should take some advice from people in these highly successful positions. But always remember, because this is what I've learned in every organization, every single person from the bottom to the top is faking it until they make it. Not one mother trucker. Oh, I will cuss on this podcast, just FYI. Like, that is just who I am. I will not be like crazy about it, but I will throw a freaking cuss word out there every now and then. So again, I lost my train of thought there, and that's okay. I'm probably going to edit this out. The point of all of this is to say that every corporation, from the bottom to the top, that I've learned, is people are just winging it. Adults are just winging it. Like, everybody's just winging it. You learn as you go, and you make mistakes, and you have lessons as you go, and that's how you get better. The mistakes that you make are not failures. They are lessons to teach you how to do it better next time, right? That's the mentality. That's the winner's mentality. And you have to have that mentality to get fully aligned with mind, body, and spirit, because you have to dedicate so much time, attention, and focus to making this a priority in your life. But for those who want it, like, the rewards are just never ending. I am in the best physical shape of my life. I was 65 pounds heavier 2 years ago. I just alchemized everything in my life and just rebirthed it. And for those who you don't know what that means, like, people have life events and they have a death and a rebirth, right? It's where you essentially like start over and reinvent yourself. A lot of people, it's like a huge career change or a divorce or, something like that, a very large life event or a death, that like is the driving force that just launches somebody. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. But I want to get to Tribe of Mentors because most of you listen to podcasts on your commute, and the average commuter is usually between 30 minutes to an hour and a half if you live in the United States. So, I want to make this as beneficial as possible and valuable as possible for the time that you do have. So, Tribe of Mentors. And again, we're not reading it back to front. Like, we can jump through. But I did take a couple notes of some of my favorites as I was going through the book. But again, you can literally jump in at any time, like, who gives me advice today? So, first one, and they always open up with a quote by the person. And this is Kyle Maynard. Thinking of what makes me happy doesn't give me the same clarity as thinking about what gives me bliss. Love this. Okay. Kyle Maynard is a best-selling author, entrepreneur, and EPSI award-winning mixed martial arts athlete, known for becoming the first quadruple amputee to reach the summits of Mount Kilimanjaro and Mount Aquanaga without the aid of prosthetics. Oprah Winfrey called Kyle one of the most inspiring young men you will ever hear about. Arnold Schwarzenegger described him as a champion human. I love that. And even Wayne Gretzky has spoken of Kyle's greatness. Kyle was born with a rare condition that resulted in arms that end at the elbows and legs that end near his knees. Despite this, and with the support of his family, Kyle learned as a child to live life independently without prosthetics. Kyle has become a champion wrestler, inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, CrossFit certified instructor, owner of the No Excuses Gym, and world record setting weightlifter and skilled mountaineer. When I tell you, like, the days I'm like, I don't feel like going to the gym today. If freaking Kyle Maynard can do it without arms and legs, freaking Mount Kilimanjaro, and he's also a certified instructor, like, where's my excuse? Hence his No Excuses Gym, right? Like, the point of it is not to beat you up. The point is to make you realize the only thing that holds you back in life is you. I promise you, root cause analysis, which we will talk about a lot in this podcast, root cause analysis every single time. Like, you are what is always holding you back if you're held back. There was a movie years ago, I think it's probably been 10 years at this point, with, oh my gosh, I can picture, he was in that movie that took place in Las Vegas, where they all got really, and the guy was like, but did you die? Okay. Well, anywho, the guy from that movie, was in a movie called Limitless. And it was this, Hollywood movie about red pill, blue pill. But at the end of the day, it's a placebo effect, right? A placebo effect is where you tell somebody that they have a treatment, so their brain convinces them that, oh, they're going to get better. And then they do, because it's the power of the mind. It's not red pill, blue pill. It's, are you going to continue to hold yourself back? Are you going to drop all of that shadow, drop all of that fear, that anxiety, that self-doubt? And are you going to go for your freaking dreams? Because the sky isn't the limit, folks. It's not. Right? We can go to outer space. It goes beyond that. So if Kyle can do it, hashtag that. If Kyle Maynard can do it, I can do it. I'm going to set that as an alarm clock in the morning. See why I love this book, though? It's like, gosh, it makes you think. So, and these are random questions, but like, they add value. I love this one. What is the book or books you've given most as a gift, and why? Or what are 1 to 2 or 3 books that have greatly influenced your life? Oh my gosh, the power of books, guys. Even if you don't personally like to read, listen to an audiobook. Listen to something like this where you can absorb this information. It's so necessary and important for our mind. Humans are knowledge seeking. We have to feed the mind, okay? We have to know the answers. Humans are so, to their core, creative. But the only way humans can be creative and create masterpieces, whatever that may look like, is if at the end of the day, it goes back to what I just said, is at the end of the day, are they stopping themselves? Are they pushing forward? Are they, and I don't want to say using excuses because I want to point something out. There are valid excuses, right? Don't ever think that, like, if you told yourself your goal is 5 to 6 days a week, I'm going to go to the gym, let's just say, and you get sick and you have the flu, or, your family member is in the hospital, or a funeral comes up, something of that nature, or your body simply says that you need physical rest and you need to take a break, absolutely 100% in those circumstances, you should listen to that. If listen to your body. If it's telling you you need more sleep and more rest and you need to cut back and you're burning yourself out, listen to your mind. The same thing. Speaking of burnout, like, if we don't work through the issues and heal the mind, body, and spirit, you will be so burnt out, whether it's your career, whether it's your personal life. You can't juggle everything all the time. Something has to give if you put too much on your plate, right? We're not superheroes. Well, aliens exist now. Superheroes probably do too. And if you've read the CIA declassified documents, as I have, you do know that they do in fact exist. But anywho, we are so getting off topic. I can do that, and I promise I will try to keep it wrapped in. I want you to hear these 3 books really fast, though. Dune by Frank Herbert. The Stranger by Albert Camus, and The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell. Have added The Hero with 1,000 Faces mentally to my list because I think that one would be the most intriguing for me. When someone gives you a book that they're like, hey, like, this changed my life, or this is one of the most amazing things you're going to read, take it. I swear, take it. So I've got like 4 or 5 more books lined up for you guys that absolutely are like game changers as far as perspective, especially if you're in the I need a quick like jump start. Like, I need someone like, like a military person, then you're like, get up, maggot, let's go. You need like a mental coach that's going to be like, I need you to just say that one thing that's going to like spark, that light bulb. I hope that a resource that I'm reading to you or providing will spark that light bulb for you, because that is really all it takes. There has to be something that causes and triggers that event, right? Everything in life has an equal and opposite, or, reaction, whatever that science stuff is. It's really late at night. Okay, well, same thing, right? It applies. And the great thing about this podcast, when we talk about mind, body, and spirit, and then we talk about personal versus business, all the advice and most of the stuff that we're going to share on here, and most of the stuff in these books, when you look at the root cause analysis, they all tie together, right? They all impact each other. So when it seems like we may be bouncing around, it's on purpose. This should be a structured conversation. That's what the books are for, with resources, again, what the books are for, but casual. We should be able to have casual conversations about life experience. It needs to be natural. It needs to be real. So we're 20 minutes in. You're probably almost to work. Let's get you through Kyle really fast. The next question of Kyle, there's only a couple more. How has a failure or apparent failure set you up for later success? And do you have a favorite failure of yours? This is so important. Positive versus negative, right? So they're flipping it and saying an apparent failure that turned out to be a success. Every failure eventually turns out to be a success unless you fully give up on that dream. And he said it's almost more difficult to think of a time when an apparent failure didn't set me up for later success. Failure is inextricably connected to any major success I've ever had. See? My favorite failure was my earliest. My grandpa Betty had his dark green jar, or my grandma Betty had this dark green jar she used to ask me to get sugar out of. Except the catch was, as an amputee, I used both arms to grip things, and I could only fit one arm inside the jar. I'd sit there for hours, repeatedly failing to balance the scoop on my. I'd get it right to the edge, then lose it. After 50 more tries, I'd get it back near the top before I'd lose it again. Eventually, and sometimes to my surprise, I'd succeed. It only helped with my dexterity and focus, but it also helped build my will. The best way I can describe the feeling is a Finnish word, sisu, the mental strength to continue to try even after you feel you've reached the limits of your abilities. I don't think failure is sometimes part of the process. It always is. When you feel you can't go on, know that you're just getting started. Bravo. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, powerful words. It's so true and it's so helpful. And coming from like, I cannot preach it enough that this mentality right here is like, like for me, example, you don't think I haven't like complained about the stupidest thing in the world before, like I spilled coffee on my shirt that morning trying to walk out the door and like drop something out of my hand. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like the worst day ever, But in reality, there's a Kyle out there, right? That lost limbs and then had to rebuild his entire existence with the one thing that we all take advantage of essentially and don't really think about, right? Because it's attached to us. We don't typically have missing limbs. So it's just such a different perspective. It's all about perspective. He flipped it. He alchemized his pain and turned it into his success. I just love it. I mean, that's all you do. If you look at any interview of any successful person, they'll all just say, all you have to do is believe in yourself and go. Like, tell yourself you can do it and go after that goal. Like, the rest will just happen. Yeah, you may fail a couple times, but like, that's part of it. Because every failure is actually just teaching you a lesson. So just flip it. And if you have a failure, say, okay, what lesson can I learn out of this? How can I look at this differently to go, okay, how can I do it better next time? Right? Perspective is everything. So the almost final question for Kyle, if you could have a gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would it say and why? Are there any quotes you think of often or live your life by? Oh, yes. I love a good quote. The quote I'd put on that billboard belongs to my friend and former Navy SEAL, Richard Makowitz. Not dead, can't quit. A few people said it was borderline child abuse that my parents had me continue wrestling after I lost my first 35 matches. Less than a decade later, those same people were saying I was unfairly advantaged. My sisters cried after reading comments about how it would take 20 seconds for me to become the first televised death in MMA. Spoiler alert, didn't die. I love this guy's mentality. I love his attitude. Some said I'd get my team killed on Mount Kilimanjaro and Mount I'm not going to try and keep pronouncing and butchering that mountain. I'm willing to bet most of those critics haven't stood on top of those mountains like my friends and I have. It's for this reason that I love that quote. It's my mantra during the toughest moments. Richard Law. That's the sweetest freaking thing I've ever heard. Oh, I love that. This I cannot preach enough. You do not ever listen to people that are not living the same life as you, right? So, for example, when I first started like posting like even one fitness TikTok or even one self-help TikTok, there were people that wanted to make comments and I ignored it. I didn't want, and it's not because I can't take criticism or constructive criticism or feedback or anything like that. It was, I can't take advice, A, from someone who, whatever advice you're trying to give me is because you have a set goal in your head of what you think my goal is, but I never told you what my goal was. So you can't give me advice if you don't know what the end goal is, right? You can't give me objective advice if you don't know what my end game is. But more than just that, if someone is not living the same existence as you, like I can't tell you how many social media, like this is, and everybody knows it's so annoying. You get that person that will like jump on someone's TikTok and be like, that's not how you build a house. And it's like a guy that has owned a construction company for a billion years and has built tens of billions of houses, and it's like, sorry, so I should let the opinion of some random person, I don't know your credentials, I don't know what you've got going on, tell me that I don't know what I'm doing even though I built my entire career around this. Oh my gosh, like the insanity, right? So yeah, don't listen to people that aren't living your existence. Don't take advice from people that aren't hustling like you. Don't have your goals, that don't have your drive, that don't have your ambition. All right. Ooh, love this one. What is an unusual habit or an absurd thing that you love? This is funny because this is part of one of the books we're going to read during this season on this podcast. That's hilarious. Okay. Kyle said, I think suffering is probably the most absurd thing that I love. Suffering is the greatest teacher I've ever had. Me too. This is extremely relatable and I love it so much. Feeling different than other kids because I was born without arms and legs, being pancaked by bigger kids in football, having my nose broken through the states and nationals in wrestling, feeling freezing cold and physically broken on the side of a mountain, being nervous and wondering if I could make payroll at my gym. They weren't always fun at the time, but they're some of my favorite moments. And I love people who love suffering. It took 3 times for my best friend, Jeff Gum, to make it through Buds through Hell Week with viral gastroenteritis and some other horrifically long name that sounds awful. The day he finished 10 years as a Navy SEAL, I asked him what the best moment was, and he said it was having everything go wrong and watching the instructors try everything they could to make him quit. Oh my gosh, yes. This is what I tell my haters, okay? Bet against me. I freaking dare you, right? If we're alchemists and we turn pain, hurt, suffering into freaking success, it's because we're hungry, right? Like, bet against me. Joe Rogan said it. There's a reason for that. You 100% will find out what you're truly made of in those moments where everything goes wrong, where you're in your suffering, where maybe you're broker than you've ever freaking been in your life. You went through a divorce, you got your heart broken. You name it, it happened to you. Those are the things that cause the rebirth, the tower moments where you're at your lowest, your darkest, and everyone is rooting against you, betting against you because they're like, there's no way he's going to survive this. There's no way she's going to survive that. And then all of a sudden you come out like a roaring fucking phoenix, rising from the ashes a billion times better than before because you did it all in silence, you should see the look on people's faces alone. You don't have to know what their opinion is. It's written all over their face. Or like, how did they do it? Because I own my brain. My brain does not own me, right? Same thing with Kyle. You think that just because he had missing limbs, he didn't tell his brain, I'm a fucking lion and we're going to do this. We are going to bounce back. And we're going to do everything that we could before, if not better. It's called hunger, right? Eminem had it. Like, the most highly successful people you meet had hunger, had failure, had suffering, had these pivotal moments. It's your reaction that determines your life path. So what do you do with the suffering, with the negative, with the dark? Do you alchemize it? And do you rise to the freaking top like the phoenix rising from the ashes that you are? Or do you let it consume you? Do you let your brain win, right? Think about that. I hope you gave me at least 33 minutes of time because I feel like I wrapped that up good enough at that point that you should still want to listen to the rest. Giving myself a pat on the back. All right. What advice would you give to a smart, driven college student about to enter the real world? And what advice should they ignore? Love this. All right. He said, since I read Joseph Campbell's line, follow your bliss, it has become my true north. It helps me in those moments when I'm staring off in the shower for hours looking like someone put me under hypnosis. Thinking of what makes me happy doesn't give me the same clarity as thinking about what gives me bliss. For me, it's the freedom I feel on top of a mountain or the breeze I feel laying on a catamaran net halfway around the world. Bliss is the highest peak of what brings you joy. If happiness is just above the status quo, bliss is what makes you feel the most alive. Expect it will take courage to follow your bliss, and expect it will suck at times. Expect you're going to have to take risks for it. Expect others won't necessarily understand. This is the truest thing ever. And also expect that what gives you bliss today may not be what gives you bliss tomorrow. Just follow it all over again. I hope I get to meet this Kyle feller in real life because what a freaking inspiration. Okay. And then what are bad recommendations you hear in your profession or area of expertise? I really like this one. The worst advice I've ever been given was to not increase the fee I charge to give a keynote speech. Yes, I don't know what he's about to say, but what I do know is you never underestimate your value, okay? In the business world, like engineers, how do you know you hire a good engineer? If their ROI in the first year meets their salary, right? So ROI is return on investment. So let's say you're going to pay that engineer $100,000. Did they provide you $100,000 in cost savings? Did you get a return on that investment? Okay, well, if you believe your service, your product, your time, you as a brand, yourself, your identity, because time is the most valuable currency. If you do not believe you are worth that much money, then how, A, will you know if you are? And B, why are you cheaping yourself out of it? And why are you not allowing transparent negotiation to take place? Life is all negotiation, right? Like one of my mentors that I'm going to have on this show at some point, he was in labor negotiations and he has some extremely interesting stories about how that really works. But again, the power of negotiation is real. You know your worth. You put that on the market. If someone doesn't want to pay that, then you negotiate. Okay, counter offer. What do you think I'm worth? Now tell me, give me the number, And then they give you the number. And then you live with that and say, okay, I can live with that. That's within the range of my worth. We all have a range, right? Maybe it's plus or minus $10,000, $20,000, and you're okay with living with that, and you already knew that because you thought about that before you even had the conversation, right? Like, all I'm saying is we need to hear what Kyle has to say because I interrupted him. I was told I would price myself out of the market. I didn't even have enough recent media coverage to compete against well-known speakers, blah, blah, blah. I decided to raise my price anyways, incrementally at first, and then I doubled it. Now I have twice as many inquiries, and people even negotiate with me less. Oh my gosh, look at this, see? I wish I'd done it earlier. It's given me much more freedom. As I write this, I'm spending a week on a yacht in Croatia and the rest of the summer traveling through Europe. Time is the only thing we can't get back. Hopefully by the time you read this, I will be on my way to doubling it again. What a fucking mastermind. This dude is a magician. Like, I love this. And he earned it. Like, he deserves it. He's a hustler. God, shout out. And his final question. In the last 5 years, what have you become better at saying no to? My biggest shift came after listening to a successful CEO talk about his philosophy for hiring people. Oh gosh, interesting. I've met some interesting CEOs in my days. When his company grew and he ran out of time to interview people himself, he had his employees rate new candidates on a 1 to 10 scale. The only stipulation was they couldn't choose 7. Interesting. It immediately dawned on me how many invitations I was receiving that I would rate as a 7: speeches, weddings, coffees, even dates. If I thought something was a 7, there was a good chance I felt obligated to do it. But if I have to decide between a 6 or an 8, it's a lot easier to quickly determine whether or not I should even consider it. Holy shit, this is brilliant life advice. I never thought about this. That's so true because we look at a 7 like a C, right? And in school and university, wherever you go, if you're in that 70-ish range, you're a C, which is an average. So you think it's okay. It's like, okay, that's what everyone has, whatever. That's another way to limit yourself, right? It's actually an excuse too. So I freaking love this. That's amazing. So again, his name is Kyle Maynard. And he does, of course, he has a KyleMaynard.com website. He has fan pages. He has an Instagram, Facebook. So you can look him up. Again, he was one of the people featured in this book, Tribe of Mentors. So yeah, on the next episode, we're going to continue to look into the Tribe of Mentors. I'm so glad if you made it this far through this podcast. I promise I'll get like a little bit more casual and like, you know, a little bit more structured with it. Hats off to the first episode. I want to take you on, after the Tribe of Mentors, I want to take you on some critical thinking books, journeys. And then if you're still listening at that point, I'd love to get your feedback. If there's any specific books you'd always thought about reading. But in the meantime, if you have not listened to the audiobook by Matthew McConaughey called Green Lights, I strongly suggest it. I want to say it's like 4 hours to listen to it, maybe. I think I did it on a road trip to Kentucky. One of the most amazing audiobooks ever. And I typically don't do audiobooks, but Matthew McConaughey himself reads it for the audiobook because it's his autobiography. But he's so hysterical and he has such great life advice and life experience in these amazing stories that it's another life-changing book, like taking his advice. So yeah, and then I want to go over a book near and dear to my heart. Oh, Bob Ross, bringing him back. A painter with truly beautiful wisdom that we can all learn from. So yeah, those are a couple of the ones that will be coming up. Again, it's going to take us a little bit to get through Tribe of Mentors just because, these books are going to lead into a lot of conversation, whether it's regarding leadership, how to develop that, how to develop some things with our mind, body, spirit, whether that's fitness, exercise. And also, I'll be dropping the link to my website here shortly, where it will have an abundance of resources, books you can look at. It'll have a blog, links to all my, social media, such as YouTube, if you want to do meditation, fitness, stuff like that. There will be nutrition stuff on there as well. So, again, I'm so excited that you joined this podcast, and hopefully you continue to listen as we go through these books. All right. See you next week.